Back live on the CNN News 18 and DBS Bank Budget Day studio with the coverage and footage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi entering Parliament for that cabinet meeting with less than half an hour to go, just about 26 minutes before the budget should be tabled in Parliament and the Finance Minister should be speaking. These are pictures from a short while ago, ladies and gentlemen, because we're getting the update that the cabinet has actually approved the budget. The cabinet has approved the budget. Doordarshan is also confirming that the cabinet has approved the budget. And these are pictures coming through a short while ago, because pictures from inside Parliament are courtesy the Doordarshan. So I'm just saying that these are pictures from a short while ago with the Prime Minister walking in for the cabinet meeting, but the cabinet meeting is over. Slowly you will see all the ministers trickling into the Lok Sabha. The galleries will be full, and there should be all the NDA allies have been urged that all the MPs should be present. It should be a full house as the budget is presented. It's a full house here in our studio too. So quickly, ladies and gentlemen, as we have those pictures, let's bring it in. Next 15 odd minutes, we'll try and focus on some of the low-hanging fruits that this budget can address, which can also make us feel good. On the part that, this feel-good factor is very important for all of us. So
it's actually more important for the government right now. Let me be honest.
See, everybody wants to feel good. Everybody wants to feel good.
The fundamental issue here is, how do we get 45% of the workforce out of agriculture into manufacturing or into another sector of the economy? I think fundamentally that is the question that we need to address.
We've parked this, that setting up a business, this is one of the low-hanging fruits. That the compliance issues, 69,000 compliance issues which are there can be done away with. Agree, disagree to everybody here. That this is one of the...
Not all can be done away with.
I'm just saying it can be reduced and it can be watered down.
Some of them are important.
You can make it easier to set up a business. It's a low-hanging fruit. It's not going to take
hang
too
on,
much.
all of this, I don't see that happening in this budget. This is a budget which has to be relevant to its political reality. The finance minister has to be seen as giving some kind of SOP or some kind of tax benefit to the middle class. There is simply no way you can ignore that political reality, aside of whatever she needs to give to Chandrababu Naidu and to Nitish Kumar. I'm not even getting into that. The point is, there has to be some kind of tax rationalization, either slabs or rates, number one. Number two, if the Modi government wants to statch the narrative and wants to give this feel-good thing, I would look at two things. ATC, which has been unchanged for God knows how many years now, and Rajiv knows this whole business about interest on housing loans. That has been unchanged for, again, God knows how many years. If they really want to change the narrative for the middle class and want to bring feel-good back, those are the two things that they need.
Zaka,
here is say gold and import duty.
No, that's fine.
I think gold is
but just let me say one thing, that I think the government has to prioritize who they are really targeting here, who actually cost them those 40 seats, to be honest. And I don't know if the middle class figure is very high in that computation. I think it is the Kisan,
rural economy,
the rural poor, and I think fundamentally you have to address that constituency. How you do it without messing up the top line numbers, without actually coming across as being imprudent, has to be seen. I think that's fundamentally where, because look, the first thing that the opposition is going to come out with and say, "Bhai, garibon ko to kuch diya nahi," because we've always told you that this is a rich person's sarkar. And that is where I think the balancing has to, that if they have to seize that narrative going into 3 assembly elections in the next 6 months, it has to happen today.
It's very difficult for the government to get rid of that image, because everybody still remembers during the epidemic all the people marching back, walking to the village.
I think that's
still there.
People,
more like a politician.
Sir, we are going to digress from the discussion because those people marched back because those states which were actually living off, imported labor said, please go back home. So there is a thing. Maharashtra is depending upon labor force from Uttar Pradesh, so you're blaming UP for having to deal with them when they were sent back. Maharashtra didn't say, we'll take care of you because you're also fueling our economy. Our work is working. So let's come back here. So some of the points which you put out, there needs to be SOPs for the Aam Aadmi, as Zaka was saying. Some of it can be the ATC and the interest on housing loans. That's something which can... You've spoken about the import on gold duty needs to be there. Rural economy, Kisan will be a focus. They will have to. Ji, Saket ji.
See, rural economy, there are again some easy wins. First of all, I don't think there is necessarily a mutually exclusive kind of thing about doing things for the middle class and the rural economy. Where does the Kisan not get their money? they don't get the money because our holdings are too small or unproductive, whatever. I'm assuming that production can be improved through organic use of agriculture, other things. The other thing is that today's date, still our Kisan is unable to sell as close to the direct market as they can. There are too many layers there.
Okay,
Logistics
sell close to
need
direct
to
market.
improve.
I'm just going to go straight across to Sanjeev Nair.
2022.
Sanjay Nair.
Those
What you are suggesting
President
is exactly
it's the
Assistant with
middleman
us.
who held the country to hostage.
Logistics are
Sanjay
there.
ji, good morning. Good morning. We are having a conversation on what all this the budget should encompass, even as we are counting down just about 20 minutes to go. So there are expectations. Overall, this should be a feel-good budget. This should also be a competitive budget. This should also be a budget that perhaps creates avenues for creating more jobs, especially in the manufacturing sector. This is what is a collective thought here in the studios. Your thoughts and your expectations from this budget, Sanjay ji.
Hi, thank you for having me on the channel. I think, from my perspective, you've got to be pretty straightforward in this budget about addressing some of the issues that are in front of us. Having an economic survey that shows incredible stability, fantastic secular growth post-COVID. I think we have to keep the realities that the economic survey highlighted, which is the world is going to be a lot more insular rather than global. So I think we have to tackle two big equations. One is the consumption and capex equation. Domestic consumption has to pick up. I think you were already discussing. There is a lackluster consumption in the middle and the lower middle class, and I think that needs to be addressed through some tax changes, which I think can be given the fiscal flexibility and a little bit of the rope that can be given to the middle class who have been genuinely hurt post-COVID, during COVID. The income has come back, but the core wealth has diminished. So I think that's one thing. And I think if you get consumption up, I don't see why you should not have private capex pick up, because corporate and bank balance sheets are as under-leveraged as you could think of. So I think that's one equation we need to solve.
Right.
And in that capex element, we have to also think of the MSMEs, which are very big manufacturers on the supply chain side, manufacturing for the sake of manufacturing, job employers, and also for exports. So let's see what comes in the budget. It's got to be very targeted towards MSMEs, whether it's innovative means of financing. And I think more than that, really, it's going to be the cost of doing business and the ease of doing business has to be simplified, whether it's a single window, multiple windows, whatever it is. I think the MSME's life has to become much simpler and reduce the number of compliances. So that's the consumption capex gap. I think the second big one is the savings and investment gap, right? You do need a significant higher level of savings if you want to meet the 7% plus GDP growth rate.
Right.
And frankly, given the total debt to GDP we carry and the fact that we preempt a lot of local savings to finance the deficit is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because you squeeze out the private savings that could go to the real sector. So we end up depending a lot on foreign savings, whether they come in the form of FPIs, which is frankly very fleeting. It's more bridging the current account, but you need to get real FDI. And that's not necessarily just private equity, venture capital. It is real FDI that comes from overseas that goes into the ground and creates real assets and increases gross capital formation. For that, I think you need much more focused, I wouldn't even say announcements, creation of real single windows that work, that are deliverable, that can be measured. And I think that's the way you bring FDI in, because for the foreigners, there is no bigger market than India, both for manufacturing in India as well as manufacturing for the world, given obviously the cost competitiveness that we talk about, but we should make sure that it's translated when the foreign investors come in here to actually create real assets. Value addition has to go up. So that's the saving investment gap and the consumption capex gap. I think these are two big things. And finally, I would say, we're hearing a lot about AI and innovation. I think this government is very well-meaning and actually is quite futuristic looking. So a significant benefit for R&D and innovation. In what form it comes, I don't know, but I think that'll be a critical one if you want to enhance the tech capability of the country's corporate and financial sector.